far as I know. More satisfying at least. Now, God may see things differently. So today I'd like to speak to dads and granddads and everybody who's trying to be a father to somebody. And some of you are father figures to people, but they're not your own children. You just have sort of struck up a relationship with a younger person, male or female, and you're a father figure to them. Some of you know that, and some of you may not even know that. But everybody wants to have a father in their life, all their life. Even when you're 60 years old, you want a father figure in your life. It's just we're wired that way, because we have a heavenly Father, and we want God with skin on in our lives too. We want a father with skin on, and that can be any man that you happen to meet, really. Who's an older man that you just look up to and depend upon for wisdom or counsel or just affection, just a slap on the back and, hey, buddy, how you doing? Great to see you. Keep up the good work. So I'm speaking to fathers and all those who are acting as a father. I'm speaking to single moms today. I know Ron's out there. She's a single mom and taking care of her girls. Maybe really single moms, I guess we're saying. Single moms need to know what I'm about to talk about, which are the 5 things fathers need to be. That's the name of the message. The 5 things fathers need to be. And because hopefully they can give some of that to their kids, even though they're a mom. And then I hope the message will speak to all of us to appreciate our dads. This sermon is often a very difficult sermon for people to hear, because it stirs up, as like our mother said, a lot of emotions, both positive and negative, about fathers. If you're a father, it can make you feel good or bad, or both, about being a father, and it can make you feel good or bad about your own father. And it's a kaleidoscope of emotions. So I get that. I have them too, and I'm hoping that this message will bring some more resolution, more clarity, so that you can feel grateful for the father you are and grateful for the father you have. And that as a result of this, you will be able to thank God and speak more for your father and speak well of him to other people, to honor him, even though you may have passed on. It's a way to honor him is to speak well of him here on earth. So, on Mother's Day, I mentioned that mothers are important to God because they exhibit a side of God that men don't typically exhibit. And that's a tender, merciful, nurturing side of God. God's a father, but he has a mother's heart. That's one way of putting it. God made man and male and female, and they're both made in the image of God, but they both reflect the image of God in slightly different refractions, so to speak. And so women are part of God's plan to reveal himself to mankind through the personality, the makeup of the feminine sex. And while there's a variety of variations, of course, and there's not just one personality for females, but in the bell curve of genders, they tend to reveal the tender, merciful, nurturing side of God more often than men. And on the flip side, men tend to reveal the authority and strength of God through the male gender. Most of the time. Women can do it too, but in the main, men reveal the strength and authority of God. Women reveal the tender, merciful, nurturing side of God. They're all God. It's all good, and male and female can do all of it or both of it. I'm just saying that there is sort of a bell curve, kind of personality among genders. Every child wants to know God is revealed in both male and female. And today we're going to honor the father. I think, as a dad myself, that it's the closest thing. When you become a dad, it's the closest thing to being godlike on earth. Because you get to co-create with God in person, and you get to be primarily responsible for the protection, nurture of that child all the days of their life on earth. You represent God the Father to that child more than usually the mom does. People's conception of God the Father usually comes from their relationship with their earthly father, for better or for worse. I would say 95 to 97% of the people I've ever talked to will tell me that their idea of God the Father was shaped by their experience of their earthly father. And of course, some of that was communicated to them in a way that misrepresented God the Father. And so they would believe lies about themselves because of that poor representation by their father, who was probably doing his best. You know, most fathers, I think, do their best. Most mothers do their best. But because they've come from homes where they were treated in a particular way, they didn't tend, and that was deficient, they treat you in the same deficient way. It sort of just goes down the generations. I don't think anybody becomes a dad saying, well, I'm just going to be the worst dad or the worst mom. It just, you tend to just give away what you've received. And if your father love has been deficient, you end up giving away deficient father love. However, if you get to know God well, you can change. I know from experience. I got to know God the Father really well when my mom broke up, and Dad was all over the world with the Army, providing for us, working 2 jobs his whole life to provide for us. I got to know God the Father really well, and I got fathered by God the Father. And His love enabled me to love myself and to love other people. His love enabled me to be a father, much better father than I would have been. So even though your mom or dad have been deficient, God can take their place. God can reparent you if you allow Him to. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to know about the 5 things about a father is He's a protector. Every father should be a protector. And for most men, this comes natural. When Laura Smith's husband heard that her son was in that building with the shooter across the hall, killing one of his best friends, listening to the gunshots, his father got a hold of a SWAT team member, friend of his, and said, "You get over there and save my son." And he made it. Recently in North Carolina, a little 17-year-old girl was in the water with her dad, waist deep water. Her name was Paige, and suddenly she went under the water, and her dad looked around and dove into the water to find out what happened to her, his daughter, and he pulled her up, and when he pulled her up, a shark was attached to her. It was biting her, and would not let go. So he began to punch the shark in the nose. That's where you always want to punch a shark, in the nose. Or grab him by the gills and punch him. And he punched him, and finally the shark let loose. The little girl lost half a leg and a few fingers, but she's alive because of her dad. How many have seen the movie Taken by Liam Neeson? Yeah. Well, it's pretty brutal. It's got a lot of violence. It's about a guy's daughter who goes to Paris and is captured by some Albanian guys who are in the sex trade, and they're going to make her a prostitute. And Liam Neeson is a former CIA type, and he goes to Paris, and he wipes out about 2,000 guys before he finally saves his girl, but he saves her. Those guys. He puts his life on the line time after time after time and saves that girl. And most men can identify, if somebody did that to their little girl, they do whatever they can, even risking their life to bring her back. So I love that movie for that. So protect her. So not everybody's going to get a chance to pull their daughter out of the water with a shark attack, or dive into a pool like I did when Kelly was 3 and pull her out. She's almost dead. But you can pray. Were you? Wow. How old were you?
And I pulled my daughter out of the water. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I pulled Caleb.
You pulled Caleb. Wow. That's amazing. So it's a great privilege to be a dad when you can save your children physically. When you can dive into the water or whatever it does to protect them. But the greatest protection you can give your children is to pray. The prayers of a father as head of the home are powerful. You have authority before God. And I know men pray differently than women and that sort of thing. But men, when they pray, the Bible says men should lift up holy hands without wrath. Okay? Specifically says men should lift up holy hands without wrath and pray. And you should pray, among many things, for your children. Because you can pray a shield of protection over them. Moms can too, but dads, you're the head of the home. So what does headship mean? It means you're ultimately responsible for the welfare of the home in every category: physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial. It's your job to make sure that the home is taken care of. You can delegate to your wife, and you should be a team as a husband and wife and all that. But the buck stops with dads. The buck stops with husbands. So prayer is your first and most powerful weapon to defend your kids. And that's what I majored in. I felt that I was a deficient dad in a lot of ways, but I knew I could pray. And I think God did a lot of things in my kids just through those prayers that I couldn't. And secondly, a man is a provider. A father is a provider. I know we live in an age when men and women both are in the workforce. But even if your wife makes more money than you, men should work. They should do their part. My dad worked 22 years in the Army as a first sergeant all over the world, and then 35 years carrying the mail on foot 13 miles a day. And then he went home and built his own house by hand. And when he was in the Army, he always had two jobs. He worked in the NCO clubs, as keeping the supplies going and stuff like that, so that he could send home an allotment check to my grandparents who were raising us, and things like that. So my dad has excelled at being a provider. Third thing that dads have to be is a promoter. So protector, provider, promoter. What's that? To promote the welfare of those under their care, their wife and children. We're talking about dads, so we're talking about the children. Dads should want their children to go farther than they go, to go higher, to be smarter, wiser, stronger, richer, holier. Dad should promote. Dad should want to say, I want you to be better than me. I want you to stand on my shoulders and go farther. I'm here for you, kids. My life is being lived for you so that you can go beyond me. So fatherhood is not something we do for ourselves, it's something we do for our kids. The fourth thing is to be a priest. Now, in the New Testament, of course, it says that all Christians are part of the priesthood of all believers. We're all priests of God. Everybody has equal access to God, male and female. But again, the father is the head of the home, and in a certain way, he needs to take some leadership in that area. He needs to pray, as I said just a moment ago, for his family, for his kids. The devil wants your kids, in case you haven't noticed. The devil, I'm listening to T.D. Jakes' sermon on a really good sermon on this subject. And he says, man, if you're 30 or 40, the devil's not worried about you. You're already messed up. If you're messed up, you're already messed up. He's after your kids. So pray for your kids. Pray that they will get that kind of relationship with God where they won't have to be victimized by the enemy. And dad's prayers are a powerful line of defense. And the last thing is to be a prophet. God wants dads to tell kids who they are, to help them shape their identity. Because the world is trying to tell our kids a lot of things that are not true. The schools are trying to teach our kids a lot of things that are not true about them. Dads represent the authority of God in a way that I think even moms don't. And when a dad says, I think you're this, I think that you could do better than that. That's not the best. That's not, whatever is happening in life, you're better than that. You can go farther than that. God has a plan for your life. I think God gives dads special revelation about their kids. And they know who they are. To moms also. But I think when a dad says it, it has a lot of punch to it. It has a lot of authority to it. And if you're listening to God and walking with God, you can tell your kids who they are, and that's going to shape them and mold them. And kids want to be told that. Kids want their dad to look them straight in the eye, put their hand on their shoulder and say, son or daughter, this is who you are. This is who you are. And if you haven't done that with your kids, I encourage you to do that. Speak and tell them who you see them to be. You know, pray and listen to the Lord and say, son or daughter, this is who I think you are. And you know what? Your kids will never forget that. They may not seem to appreciate it at the time or maybe even talk about it much, but that's a powerful statement from a dad. So there's a story about this in the Old Testament when Benjamin was being born. Benjamin was the last son of Abraham. Okay, Rachel was his mom. So she's about to deliver, and something goes wrong, and she ends up dying in delivery.
Isaac.
Jacob, you're right, not Abraham. Jacob was the father of Benjamin, right. Sorry about that. So Rachel is giving birth to her last son, and she's dying, and in her pain and agony, she names him Ben-Oni, which means son of my sadness or son of my trouble, because she was so distraught giving birth. So she dies, and Benjamin comes in, and the nurse, midwife says, your wife has just died, so sorry, here's your child, and she named him Ben-Oni. And so Jacob says, oh no, he's not going to be called that, he's going to be called Benjamin, son of my strength. He spoke to his son as an infant and told him who he was. He was not a son of sadness, son of trouble. He was son of my strength. And that Benjamin grew up to be the father, or his tribe, King Saul was a Benjamite. And Saul, who became Paul the Apostle, was of the tribe of Benjamin. So he spoke destiny into his life. He spoke identity into his life as a father. And every father needs to do that with their child. And if your father's never done that with you, it's a loss. So ask God the Father to speak to you about that. Who does God the Father say you are? You know, maybe your dad's in heaven, he can't speak to you. But ask God the Father. If your dad's alive and he's never said who you think you are, ask him, Dad, how do you see me? Who do you say that I am? It's a powerful thing when that happens. Well, all of these things, the 5 P's, protector, provider, promoter, priest, and prophet, are all revealed in Jesus, of course, because he revealed the Father.